I met the woman I love almost 33 years ago, and even after all these years, I still can't forget her. But we were only together for a few short months, and that was 17 years after we first met. In honor of this bittersweet anniversary, I want to share my story. I met her, let's call her Sarah, a couple of months after I returned from the Army. I was preparing for university entrance exams, and we happened to have the same tutor. She was almost 18. Until that moment, I had never been in love. I'd never had a girlfriend, not in a romantic sense, not in an intimate one. So when I met her, it was my first love in every way. It was like a movie. Walking her home, shy kisses on the cheek, poetry, flowers. But she was already in a relationship. She had a boyfriend, her first love, and they had been together for a year. She told me she wasn't sure if she loved him. They fought all the time. Maybe she wanted to leave him, but didn't have the courage. And after a few weeks of me hopelessly courting her, she made her choice. She stayed with him. It hurt, but I told myself all the things people say to move on, and I did my best to keep living. The only thing left was her address and phone number in my notebook, which I would glance at now and then with a sigh. She didn't stay with that guy for long. A few months later, she broke up with him, running out of his house barefoot in the rain, as she would later tell me. After that, she went in the complete opposite direction, going to clubs, meeting new guys, having meaningless flings. She never thought about me. At least, not in the way I thought about her. And then she met someone, a stable, reliable man, 15 years older than her. She married him. They had 2 children. I also moved on. I met someone, a distant relative of my stepmother, and we lived together for years before eventually getting married. I thought about Sarah sometimes, and my heart always ached a little. But over time, the memories faded. My marriage wasn't perfect. We had a complicated relationship from the start, full of fights and reconciliations. But that's not what this story is about. We moved to another country. We had children, and life continued. Then, 15 years after I last saw her, I found her on social media. I hesitated, but eventually sent her a message. She responded. At first, we just exchanged memories, but the more we talked, the more we got pulled back in. Soon, we were talking every day, then calling, then late-night conversations that turned into something more. Virtual intimacy, whispered confessions. We wanted to meet, but the distance made it nearly impossible. And then, as all secrets do, ours came to light. My wife found our messages. She found a way to contact Sarah's husband. I still don't know how. She told him everything. Sarah's husband reacted in the worst possible way. He had an affair, and then he left. For a moment, I thought this was fate, that this was the universe telling me it was time to finally be with the woman I loved. I left too. I flew to her. We spent a week in Paris, lost in the fantasy of finally having what we had always dreamed of, and then reality hit. Her husband came back. Her children begged her to let him return, and she did. The second time she left me, it shattered me in ways I can't describe. I fought for her. I told myself her husband would leave again. She met me in secret. We would sneak away to a quiet place, just the 2 of us, locked in moments of passion and longing. She would cry. She would say she loved me, but she always went back to him. She was dependent on him financially, emotionally. She told me she had no choice. This went on for a year, and slowly, I felt her slipping away. She no longer met me out of love, but out of obligation. It became a duty, not a desire, and I knew it was over. So I made my own impossible choice. I went back to my family. It didn't happen right away. For a while, I lived alone, pretending I could exist between 2 lives. But eventually, I reconciled with my wife, and we moved forward. Sarah and I still talked, though less and less over time. We never cut the cord completely, though. We both held on to something, some small thread connecting us. We no longer said, "I love you," but the words hung there, unspoken, understood. Then one day I was scrolling through social media and saw something that stopped my heart. Her husband had died, a sudden stroke. I called her immediately. She cried. I listened, and I realized she had loved him. I wondered if this was finally our chance. If now, finally, we could be free. Not right away, of course, but maybe after some time, after her grief passed, we could find our way back to each other. But years passed, and that never happened. We spoke more often, yes. We even started saying, "I love you," again, here and there, but nothing changed. She was alone, I was with my family, and the distance between us, both physical and emotional, never disappeared. Maybe in another life, things would have been different. Maybe one day, when our children are grown, when our obligations fade, we'll meet again. Or maybe we never will. Maybe all I have left is to close my eyes and remember the feel of her touch, the sound of her voice, the way she looked at me that first night 33 years ago, and wonder where, on the winding roads of life, I let my one true love slip away.